So I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. I started it because Google didn't give me a job. If Google had given me a job, probably PhonePe wouldn't have happened. So thanks to Google. Commerce in this country is not going to take off if payments is not solved at an infrastructure level. The pivotal decisions in my life have been geared towards, am I growing by making this next step in my life? Actually, the decision not to join IIT has given me more fame than the decision if I joined IIT. The singular thing that I actually have come to realize is the core of who I am and what drives me is to always measure growth through learning. Figure out what is it that drives you, what are the things that excite you, and make every pivotal decision in your life towards saying that are you pushing the boundaries on what excites you, on what drives you, everything else will come to you. What is the definition of a startup? Startup is not whether it's a small company or a big company, whether it's highly funded or running very lean. The definition of a startup is, so Himanshu and I were part of the first big billion day. The one that is recorded in the annals of history as an epic fail. Sales opened at 8 a.m. and by 8:15, around 8:15, every payment gateway in the country crashed. Did they not just crash, but after that, just to do, we started taking orders with COD. Then some of the orders that had actually failed succeeded afterwards. Never happens in the payment industry, happened that day. Some orders that succeeded in payments failed later. So it was chaos. Chaos. Before the sale, we had gone to all the payment gateways and they had said that we support Tatkal booking. You can't be bigger than Tatkal booking in the country. So don't worry. And we also said that Tatkal booking is there. How can we be bigger than Tatkal? That was the thing. So we said, chalo, hoga. Everything is good. The payment gateways will work. Nothing worked, right? And it was obviously the herding mentality was huge. What we had created was sales. For example, there was something called fixed inventory sales. 10 printers only available for 1 rupee each, right? And then the rest of the printers will be sold at MRP. So you have 1 lakh customers fighting for the 10 printers at this particular time in the morning. Should have realized, right, that this is going to cause it. But that's what caused it. That was the realization that commerce in this country is not going to take off if payments is not solved at an infrastructure level. So that's actually the origin story of PhonePe. Hello, everybody, and congratulations on making your first big decision of joining Scalar. By the way, I've been you amazing academy. It's my first time here. I went to the labs. They gave me a tour of the labs. Phenomenal. I wish I had labs like this when I was studying. I would have paid more attention. Only thing I have is that don't get spoiled by all of this. This thing is better than most of the corporate offices that I've seen. So, so Scalar is already spoiling you a bit. Look, I think it's great to start Monday morning for me. Very energizing to talk to a bunch of bright minds. Rarely do I get the opportunity to actually engage with students that much these days, so thank you for that. What I'd like to actually talk to you about is specifically what are the few things that have helped me through my career. And there's been a bunch of things, right? Obviously, there's fame, glory, money, a lot of things that we all chase. But the singular thing that I actually have come to realize is the core of who I am and what drives me is to always measure growth through learning. Something what Abhimanyu touched upon, right? And I'd like to actually just give you a few clear examples of that, about what growth through learning really means. Growth through learning, and every decision that I've made, the pivotal decisions in my life have been geared towards, am I growing by making this next step in my life, right? Everything else, like I said, fame, glory, money, everything follows. In fact, my first big decision actually was exactly where you were 30 years ago. I'm slightly older than Abhimanyu. I think he said 20 years. 30 years ago is when I entered engineering, 1995. I gave my JEE exam. I got a rank, not a great rank, but I did get a rank. And so I had a choice in front of me, was basically IIT Mumbai, civil engineering. And at that point, I was very clear that I wanted to do computers, right? And I didn't want to do civil engineering. I think the pressure is less these days. That time, the pressure was significant. If you had an IIT rank and you had a space in any IIT, it was a no-brainer to go and join. So I had, first of all, I went for my counseling. The counselor said that, so I said I want to do computers. He laughed. He said, your rank, you can't do computers. But don't worry, you'll get something. He said, so civil was there. He said, great, civil in Bombay is excellent. Uh, I, in fact, said, no, I will not join IIT. Surprisingly, even today, if you Google my name, there's one stupid article that comes saying IIT dropout founded PhonePe. I'm not an IIT dropout. I never joined. To you have to join to become a dropout. So the decision not to join IIT has given me more fame than the decision if I joined IIT. So I joined Mumbai University to pursue computer engineering. So I did my BE in computer engineering. I was very clear that that's what I wanted to pursue. It's difficult to say whether that decision would have affected me in any which way. Maybe we would have been in the same place I am today by doing civil engineering. But I do believe that these choices make a lot of difference, right? I met my co-founder Sameer Nigam, who was my co-founder at PhonePe, who was my co-founder in the previous company before we joined Flipkart at my college in Mumbai University when we did our computer engineering together. So that's I think Rohit was mentioning about Abhimanyu and his co-founder. Me and my co-founder met in my engineering after I'd made the very, very clear decision that that's what I wanted to do. So that was a one pivotal decision that helped me get to where I am today in a small but a very significant way. Second one was when, so after that, I went to do my master's in the US. That was a very common herd mentality that time. You finish your engineering and then you give your GRE and you go off to the States. Not a very scientific decision, just followed the crowd. Started my career in a startup. So I graduated from my master's from Purdue University. Had a bunch of good offers. I had an offer from Intel. I had an offer from IBM. And I had an offer from a startup called Andiamo Systems. It was a startup. Again, at that point, startups were not as cool as they are today, right? Today, it's again feels like a no-brainer to be able to actually join a startup, learn, etc. At that point, Intel, IBM were right up there, and then you had the startup. Uh, Chose the startup simply because of the fact that believed in what we call today as compressed learning cycles and multiple of them, right? Himanshu, my friend, colleague, you'll hear from him also soon. We've been through Flipkart, which is a university by itself in terms of how much you can learn in what a short period of time. Strong belief was that joining a startup really meant that you'll have compressed learning cycles early in your career, right? What I would have learned at an IBM or an Intel over a period of 5 years, I'd probably learned in Andiamo Systems in a single year, right? In 1 year. That's the kind of ratio that something that is fast moving. What is the definition of a startup? A startup is not whether it's a small company or a big company, whether it's highly funded or running very lean. The definition of a startup is whether a company is in hyper growth phase. Scalar is a startup, right? Hyper growth phase. I am surprised by the number of students, and I believe this is the second intake of this batch, and there was 600 or more in the first one. That's hyper growth, right? The ability to do something at scale in a short period of time puts its own set of challenges, and getting through those challenges and the learning that comes with that is phenomenal. So that was the second decision. Held me in really good stead for the first 10 years of my career, right? It's phenomenal. I learned a lot. Uh, it was in the embedded software space, which was highly linked to hardware, right? So I was working in embedded C and largely on chips and special processors, coding for that. Phenomenal. But towards the approximately 8, 9 year mark, Google had happened. Uh, the internet had even significantly taken off. This was obviously after the dot-com internet was already there. But the change that we started seeing, there was content on YouTube. Google obviously was already a listed company doing extremely well. So I realized that what really drives me is the ability to actually have not just compressed learning cycles, but also the ability to get feedback from what I build. I'm a builder by design, that's what excites me. I like to build. But the feedback cycles on the embedded space were 2 to 3 years. When you're building on hardware and you have to manufacture hardware and ship hardware, the software part of it and getting cycles back from what you have built takes 2 to 3 years. What the internet had done at that point, right? Again, seems very obvious these days, had basically broken the barrier of creating, putting something out there and getting the feedback much faster. So I wanted to actually jump on that learning cycle. I wanted to actually be a part of the internet revolution where I could actually build, deploy, learn, rebuild. Uh, After working approximately 10 years in the embedded space, I wasn't able to get a job with the Googles and the Yahoos of the world because I was branded a little bit as embedded software engineer and not, I hadn't even coded in HTML. I didn't even know HTML at that point, right? Forget anything else, right? So, but I really wanted to get into this space. Uh, that's when I quit and started my first company with Samir. So I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. I started it because Google didn't give me a job. If Google had given me a job, probably PhonePe wouldn't have happened. So thanks to Google. So started working with Samir in the consumer internet space. So the simple reason of saying that this is where the action is and this is where I want to be from a learning is what made us start that. It was a music startup. We started building the iTunes for India. This was way back in 2009. We did build it and we failed, but we pivoted into becoming something that was the B2B part of iTunes. So we had built this entire platform that had aggregated 8 million music tracks across every known language in the country. We had an API through which we could power the streaming of this on any platform. We could actually encrypt those streams. We could bill based on the consumption, the whole 9 yards. So a lot of people familiar with Ghana.com, right? So Ghana.com, when it launched in 2011, was completely powered by our platform. The album art, the search, the stream was all coming from our platform, right? That's what we had built. So that's how I got into the consumer internet space, surely because I wanted to actually learn and expand. Post that, became a part of Flipkart. Flipkart acquired that company to build its own digital product. That's how I came into Flipkart, to build something called Flight MP3 and music. Amazing journey. Flipkart was phenomenal, huge learning. The next pivotal decision came as a huge failure, but with its own learnings. Everybody familiar with Big Billion Day on Flipkart? The huge sale right around the corner now. So Himanshu and I were part of the first Big Billion Day, the one that is recorded in the annals of history as an epic fail. So we were part of supply chain. We had readied ourselves for huge amount of demand coming in. We thought we were all there. We wanted to emulate the China single day sales model, which is this huge sale that happens on the 1st of November, the 111 Singles Day as they call it. All set. Sales opened at 8 a.m. And by 8:15, around 8:15, every payment gateway in the country crashed. Right? There was Citi, there was SBI and something else, I forget. All of them crashed. Did they not just crash, but after that, just to do, we started taking orders with COD. Then some of the orders that had actually failed succeeded afterwards. Never happens in the payment industry, happened that day. Some orders that succeeded in payments failed later. So it was chaos. Chaos. Before the sale, we had gone to all the payment gateways and they had said that, look, we support Tatkal booking. You can't be bigger than Tatkal booking in the country. So don't worry. And we also said that, okay, Tatkal booking is there. How can we be bigger than Tatkal? That was the thing. So we said, chalo, hoga, everything is good. The payment gateways will work. Nothing worked, right? And it was obviously, the herding mentality was huge. What we had created was sales. For example, there was something called fixed inventory sales. 10 printers only available for 1 rupee each, right? And then the rest of the printers will be sold at MRP. So you have 1 lakh customers fighting for the 10 printers at this particular time in the morning. Should have realized, right, that this is going to cause it. But that's what caused it. That was the realization that commerce in this country is not going to take off if payments is not solved at an infrastructure level. So that's actually the origin story of PhonePe. Why we started PhonePe, we felt that commerce and e-commerce, any sort of digital product that is actually being service or product that is reaching consumers is not going to see its highest potential if we don't solve for the basic primitive of money exchange digitally. So we started PhonePe, right? So that realization, that was 14 October. I think that was 14 October, 2014 October, and 2015 A year later is when we started PhonePe. Again, in PhonePe also, there was this moment where when we started PhonePe, UPI was not there. At least we didn't know there was something called UPI, right? 3 months into starting PhonePe, we suddenly realized there's something like UPI being thought of or being worked on. Immediately shelved everything that we were building and jumped onto the UPI bandwagon because we realized that this is all or nothing. If we can create something, if the country can create something like UPI, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? And we will be able to ride that only so that we can learn what kind of, we had already seen Aadhaar as tech that has solved something at population level scale. I wanted to next take my learning to say that how do I be part of something that is solving for population level scale? That was the sheer excitement of joining UPI. In fact, in a lot of my interviews, you'll see this term being used, population scale technology. That's my genuine belief, right? It'll take population scale technology to solve for every problem in this country. So that decision to jump on UPI was that fourth decision that was pivotal in my career. So all in all, if you notice, none of these decisions that we had taken were towards anything that was related to uh, fame or fortune. They were related purely to the fact that what drove me personally and was this expanding on that value. The value that drives me personally is just growth through learning. And every decision that I've taken has been part of that. So my only thing is, without being preachy, figure out. I think you have this phenomenal opportunity, right? You've already taken that one very important decision by joining Scalar. It may seem counterintuitive in many ways, but it is the right decision because the world is moving towards more and more of pure applied education versus education that has been taught to us in the past. And that's already one decision well taken. Figure out what is it that drives you, what are the things that excite you, and make every pivotal decision in your life towards saying that are you pushing the boundaries on what excites you, on what drives you, everything else will come to you. Yeah? Godspeed and all the best.
So there were so many other competitors as well in your space, that were riding the same wave. So how did you see that as a challenge, and
Uh,
how did you basically overcome it?
So I think when we started, we were the first app on UPI. Luckily, nobody believed in UPI, including the banks didn't believe in UPI when we started. So for us, it was greenfield territory. Paytm was a wallet. Basically, you had to actually put money from your bank account or a card into the wallet and then use it, which was kind of, in our view, an artificial construct. So for us, India being a bank-first country, we felt that UPI was a redefining movement where the actual source of funds gets used and nobody else was believing in it. So we were actually the first app to launch on UPI. So that way we did have a first mover advantage, but it was also backed by a decision where others thought that this is not going to work. Over time, obviously, we had a significant amount of competition. The two ways we've actually won on that is on the back of an excellent product. We do have the lowest failure rate. UPI has its own challenges as a protocol. It is not atomic. You would have learned what is an atomic transaction. UPI is not atomic, right? It is not an atomic transaction where there is a rollback automatically, so it has its own challenges. So there's a fair amount of engineering excellence that goes into reducing the failure rate. So we take pride in that one. Secondly, I think we are the ones who use data the best in terms of how you track user journeys, how do you actually be just in time, what are the use cases that have to be brought forth to you to be able to use PhonePe more and more frequently. So we measure ourselves on not output metrics on number of transactions. We do a large number of transactions. We have a large number of users. What we measure ourselves is on input metrics, transactions per customer and categories per customer. So depth and breadth. How much do you use PhonePe on a daily basis, and what are the number of different use cases you keep using PhonePe for? So we measure ourselves by saying that if there are 10 typical spends a day, are we an option on all 10, and are you using us for all 10? Those are the two ways we look at ourselves, and that's what is singularly drives us, input metrics, because the output will happen. So I believe that's what keeps us ahead, but I'm the founder, so it's a biased answer. Morning.
Can you tell me the difference between Razorpay and PayPal and the UPI we have in India? Like, why is it better? You know the recent crash that happened with Microsoft in Delhi and all, the airports, they weren't working, but transactions and all were working. So how is it different if you can tell me?
So there are two parts to that: Razorpay, PayPal versus UPI in India. So Razorpay and PayPal are more payment gateways. They work on top of what are called payment rails, right? So typically, the rails that we have had in the past are net banking, and Visa and MasterCard, right? Those are rails. They're basically ways in which money can be exchanged between two parties. All of those are not necessarily real time, right? Net banking is, but has its own challenges in terms of how it's authenticated. So if you look at the card world, which is what PayPal is on and what Razorpay was largely supporting up until UPI came, they were working on top of the payment rails called Visa and MasterCard, which are card networks. So the big two differences between card networks are card networks don't do real-time settlement, which means that the money does not go from the sending party to the receiving party instantly. It is held for a particular period of times in a middle escrow and then delivered to the recipient. Second part of it, they are not designed to be peer-to-peer, which means it is not. It's designed to be for businesses accepting payments. So that's why it's a payment gateway. They are all payment gateways. UPI is a new payment rail. So if you want to look at where UPI stands in the world order, there's a Visa, there's a MasterCard, there is Discover, etc., and there is UPI. So UPI is a new payment rail. It's payment infrastructure. Big difference is it comes under the classification of something called FastPay. FastPay is any payment rail that supports real-time settlements. Sending party and receiving party instantly get the debit and the credit, which does not happen in a Visa or a MasterCard. Secondly, it supports what is called peer-to-peer, which means it is designed to support any parties, not just for merchant payments. So that made UPI unique in the world as being both FastPay, which is real-time settlements, and supporting both peer-to-peer as well as business payments. Now there are other ones that have come across the world. Pix in Brazil. There's something Pay Now, I think, or something, or in US also that has come up. There are other parts of the world, but UPI was unique that it was first one to actually do this. The second part of your question, which is the Microsoft, has nothing to do with payments. It basically is the unfortunate side effect of what we call as vendor lock-in in tech. So if you look at Windows as an operating system, and Windows operating system largely being powered by a single cybersecurity solution called CrowdStrike, that update to a CrowdStrike being something that has brought down the operating system, which is Windows, was the cause of that whole chaos. UPI or payments in India in general are sovereign software, which means that effectively they don't rely on any foreign software. It's built here and it doesn't rely on Windows or anything. It's open source. It's actually UPI is completely built on open source, owned and operated by NPCI, which meant that they had no exposure to that risk.
This is Soham. So I wanted to ask, as you said, this became a competitive market. How did you manage your profit versus growth? Like in 2023, your profit after tax was around 740 CR. Then it turned around and 740 CR in loss. Then it turned around and became 198 CR in profit. How did you make this transformation?
First of all, I'm very impressed that you know my numbers. No, I'm actually seriously impressed. That's not sarcasm. I'm actually very, very impressed that either you're reading the news about us or you read our annual report, which is phenomenal. I genuinely believe that every engineer should actually learn all the adjacencies of what it takes to build a great business, and finance is one of them. I think two parts I'll answer that in. One is we have a very strong principle of every vertical being unit economics positive and actually profitable over time. We don't believe in actually building a business that is loss leading on one axis that is actually funding another one where the money can be made, which is the indirect monetization model. We don't believe in that. We are not an ad-led platform. We were not, unlike a lot of payment and fintechs, where payments is used as customer acquisition and lending is where you make the money after you spend a lot in creating a large customer base on payments. We never believed in that. We did not start our lending distribution business till payments was profitable. So that is the main axis. Every business should be unit economics positive and it should be profitable by itself. Second one is on the fact that we actually are extremely cost conscious as a business. I'll give you a simple thing. Samir and I still monitor what is the total cost of sending a SMS or So we have 600 million users, monthly active users is 300 million. We do around 400 million transactions a day. If every transaction has to send an SMS, I know it looks like very small, that's a huge amount of money that is being spent. We don't send an SMS unless so we do push notifications on the app. We track our push notifications. Push notifications has a lower delivery rate than SMS. We try multiple channels. If you're not been able to actually get a channel to deliver a confirmation, we fall back to an SMS, right? So you'll see very less SMSs from PhonePe because that's a cost. I give that example because most of the time companies don't even look at all these accesses. That's buried way underneath. If you are to be a successful business, you have to look at every cost line item and see, is there an opportunity? And in a world where you are connected digitally 24/7, there'll be so many ways to actually optimize that interaction. You should be able to actually bring your cost significantly down. So that way we are a very cost conscious company. So these two principles is the basis on which we have become a profitable business. Yeah.